That means most homeowners will be paying more. In some areas, the charge could rise by 50% plus. John McCartney is head of research with Savills Ireland, and Conal McQuillia is chief economist with Davy Research. Both have analysed price trends across the country and how they may impact property tax rates. I spoke to them this weekend and began by asking John McCartney which areas were likely to see the biggest hikes.
If we take the average across the whole country, in May 2013, when the initial valuation was struck, the average price of a house was about €194,000. That has increased since then to about 262,000. So a €67,000 increase. So that would mean that most, across the country, most households would face a one band increase, which is 90 quid on their bill. That's what you're looking at. But it varies a whole lot, obviously, depending on where you live. In Dublin, the average price has gone up by about 48%. But because that represents a very big increase in absolute terms of 141,000, it would mean that the average householder in Dublin would skip 3 bands, which would bring you from previously an LPT charge of €495 per annum to about €765 per annum, which is about 55%.
And Conal, I suppose we're looking at average figures there, and we're also looking at the figure as it stands, which I suppose makes the fairly brave assumption, the way things are going now, that you won't see further increases in house prices between now and 2019, which is when the freeze would be lifted, should it be lifted.
Well, absolutely, and what we've seen is, I suppose, double-digit house price inflation return, particularly in the capital, Dublin, and the reason for that is that the central bank lending rules were relaxed last year. It looks as if the amount of leverage people are taking out, those loan-to-income multiples, are being stretched a little bit because the rules allow them to do so. So people are competing for very few homes on the market. They're bidding the price up. So if you think that house prices will rise by maybe 10-11% this year, maybe a little bit slower next year, as that sort of leverage increases, and then really, over the long term, we'd expect house prices to rise in line with incomes and wages. So in 2, 3, 4 years from now, house prices might be 20% to 25% higher. Again, that'll push up the bands. It'll mean a higher bill for people. But of course, if we look at our neighbours in the United Kingdom, the last time they revalued their council tax bands in the United Kingdom was in 1991. It's a very difficult very difficult thing politically for governments to do, and certainly in the UK we've seen that revaluation or plans to revalue houses put off again and again and again. So we could very easily be sitting here in 2 or 3 years' time, people are very worried about higher property tax bills, but they find that the government puts off that revaluation.
But you have a couple of issues there, I suppose. Is firstly that you're lacking in certainty, and secondly that you could be, depending on what way things go, facing a fairly lumpy increase in your tax outlay for any particular year from 2019 onwards, which is not ideal from a financial planning point of view.
Well, it is. Well, John just mentioned most people in Ireland will be looking at maybe one increase in the band, so that's sort of an extra €90 per year. That's not a great amount. If you live in Dublin, perhaps maybe during 2013 when your house was valued, let's say it was worth 350, 400,000 euro, maybe it's worth 600, 650,000 euro. So there you're looking at a bigger bill. Again, that'd be maybe 360, 450 if you went up 5 bands. But again, we need to put this in context. If you looked at the budget last year, the reasonably modest cuts to the universal social charge income taxes, they would have made a person at the average wage better off by around €200. So again, people don't like a broadening of the tax base. When they see an increase in their property tax bill, they're very conscious of that, and they tend to ring up radio programs to complain. But when you set that against the tax cuts that are out there, overall people are going to be better off if we continue seeing these tax cuts being implemented.
If we're talking about broadening the tax base, though, John, just in the wider scheme of funding, the local property tax doesn't represent it's not a huge tax head.
No, certainly not. I mean, last year it generated 463 million out of total current tax revenue of 47.9 billion. So it's only about 1%. And, although we talked about, the idea of broadening the tax base and getting more stable tax income from real estate, actually it doesn't come next nigh or near the revenues that we were getting from stamp duty back in the day.